This episode is proudly supported by Fine Food Australia. Fine Food Australia, the country's leading trade event for the food service and hospitality industry, is back in Melbourne. Taking place the 31st of August to the 3rd of September at Melbourne Convention and Exhibition Centre, Melbourne. For over 40 years, Fine Food Australia has been the ultimate destination for chefs, restaurateurs, cafe owners, food retailers, and distributors alike, with over 900 exhibitors across 10 product categories, featuring both local and global brands. Fine Food Australia is where you'll find what's new, what's next, and what's driving the food industry forward. Make sure you register online before the 31st of August to secure free trade entry, so you don't have to pay $45 at the door. For more information, go to finefoodaustralia.com.au.
Fishermen are a unique breed. You get sort of forged into this personality over years of doing it. There's lots of adversity, but man, the good times are so good.
Welcome to the Fishtales Seafood Podcast, where we follow seafood from the plate back to the water and meet the people whose lives are shaped by what happens in between. A fishery closure can sound like a sterile line in a government announcement, but for a fisherman, it can mean the disappearance of a livelihood, a boat without a purpose, and the sudden loss of everything you thought you understood about your future. When that happened to Anthony Heslewood, he faced a fairly brutal choice: leave fishing altogether or learn how to become a different kind of fisherman. He chose the latter. Anthony headed to Augusta in Western Australia and began pursuing broadbill swordfish, an elusive, powerful and faintly prehistoric animal that can make even the most experienced fisherman feel like an enthusiastic amateur. Today, we talk about the reality of losing a fishery, the courage and stubbornness required to start again, the peculiar business of sword fishing, and the opportunities that can emerge when the original plan disappears over the horizon. This is Anthony Heslewood of Revolution Fisheries.
Hi, I'm Anthony Heslewood, owner of Revolution Fisheries down in Busselton in Western Australia. Up until sort of January 26, we were wetlining in the Indian Ocean and the Southern Ocean, and now we've just found a new avenue to catch fish.
So before we get into that next chapter of your story, just give us a bit of background as to what Revolution Fisheries looked like before the closure of that fishery and what you were catching.
So, before the closure, we were predominantly wetlining, so just using lines to target bottom fish in the West Coast demersal and South Coast demersal fisheries. So we like to move around a lot. We were targeting mainly things like nanagai, harpooka, snapper, jewfish, things like that, and had sort of gone into a high-end kind of quality, low-volume space. Yeah, our primary focus was to catch less fish, but really look after them and honour and respect those animals, and hopefully that was shining on the other end.
And these were ending up in some of the finest restaurants in Australia and offshore.
Yeah. I mean, we've got an amazing clientele list, and it was really vilifying to see that the chefs were seeing the hard work we were putting in, and it was all worthwhile.
When did you first realise that the fishery you'd built your livelihood around might actually close?
Well, we really had no indication that it was going to close right up until sort of 3 weeks before Christmas, with a really unexpected and abrupt announcement from our fisheries minister, who just blanket closed permanent closures of our fisheries overnight. So we kind of had 3 weeks notice before Christmas that in January we wouldn't have a job. So it was a pretty daunting and scary time.
And what does that mean in human terms? Not sort of the policy documents, but more what happens to the fisherman, the boat and the family following that morning? Well,
I mean, far out. Yeah, I can't speak for everyone else, but I was sort of scrambling, I was just making a million phone calls I was really pragmatic. I was trying not to focus on the negatives of it and trying to just figure out what are we going to do, because we've got 3 weeks to work something out. A lot of people, understandably were super upset and kind of got caught up in that. And, but yeah, I sort of tried to take a different approach and not let myself feel the emotions too much and really try and find a solution.
Did you ever simply consider getting out of fishing altogether, or it's just too deep in your DNA?
Look, mate, not really. I mean, it's going to have to be pretty drastic times for me to get out of fishing. But I mean, certainly I had to consider it, but I didn't consider it for too long.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. But instead, you effectively reinvented yourself, and so why swordfish? How did that come about?
Well, so there's a few reasons we landed on swordfish. One of them is that a lot of the other fisheries are prohibitively expensive to get into, and there just isn't quota or entitlement available. So we had a pretty slim list of choices. But the thing that I really liked about swordfish is that, for one, it's a federal fishery, so we have really robust science, and the political landscape is sort of almost non-existent there. Which, as it should be in fisheries. But also, I really liked that I believed that I would be able to bring a bit of our ethos into this fishery, which has always been a high volume fishery where it's sort of, catch the most, bring them in, long trips, this kind of thing. So I really wanted to bring our ethos into it. I thought I could revolutionize it a little bit and, do shorter trips, have higher quality fish, lower volume, and yeah, try and do the same thing that I did with the reef fish.
And kind of why Augusta? Why the southwest there of West Australia?
Well, I mean, at this point, we'd bought a factory and a processing facility in Augusta. So, that had become our base. It's also a great little harbour there. And to be honest, it might be a bit childish, but I felt safe in Augusta because I know the water there, and I know about it there. And I felt like that would be the best spot for me to start.
And through your investigations, I mean, it does have some history as a swordfish fishery down there. Did you find that from?
From what I can understand, and I did do a whole bunch of research. I didn't just, willy-nilly jump into this. I did a whole bunch of research. I spoke to a bunch of people. And yeah, there was traditionally quite a strong fishery there for a number of years, sort of up and down the West Australian coast. I think it sort of fell victim to, what a lot of fisheries do, and it's just that catch the most, sell them at whatever price. And, it's sort of, we saw some localized depletion of the swordfish because of the overfishing of it. And then the market was also in turn destroyed because there was so much available. It was sort of outstripping demand by a mile.
But you were encouraged by your investigations?
Yeah, absolutely. I was encouraged by the fact that, people had historically caught fish there. I felt good about being able to catch the fish. I don't know whether it's just pure arrogance or what, but I feel like, once you've kind of got even a slither of mastery around some fishing, it's not the same thing, but the same core values and the same kind of ethos has to go with any kind of fishing that you do. You have to be aware of how hard it is and, the struggles you're going to encounter. You have to be ready for that. And I felt like I was ready for a challenge. And I thought, we'll go and have a go.
And how different is sword fishing from the fishing that you knew before? I mean, technically, physically, psychologically, I suppose.
It's bloody completely different on every level, really. It's absolutely like nothing I've ever done. It's even as far as, when you're reef fishing, you've got a spot, so you'll find a spot of reef or whatever where the fish are hanging out and you can go back to it and catch fish. But with the sword fishing and the tuna, the water is, constantly moving and they're moving with it. So you've got to find these little pockets of time and place where the fish are, and they won't be there again, or they might not be there again for a long period of time, or, it changes every second. So it's really a challenge. I hadn't even seen a swordfish until the first one I caught.
Take us through that experience, that first swordfish.
It's been an enormous learning curve. So we'd left Port Geograph after an extensive refit of our boat because, our boat wasn't fit for purpose either. It's very small and it's not, we don't have brine tanks. We didn't have a long line reel. We didn't have any of the stuff. So we had to do an extensive refit, a few weeks there. And then we steamed from Port Geograph down off the waters of Augusta, sort of west of Hamlin Bay, a very long way out, which is another thing we're just getting used to, being so far offshore. We ran the line out and then up at 3 a.m. to haul back. And having absolutely no idea what to expect. Had I said it right, I didn't ever know, I had no idea that anything I'd done was right. So it's all anecdotal evidence I'm running off people that did it 30 years ago. I had absolutely no clue. And I've just spent like a couple of $100,000 trying to, setting this up on a whim, really. And mate, it was the luckiest thing ever that, the first 22 hooks we pulled up, we had 3 swordfish on deck. So I remember just seeing that first big swordfish come up in the lights at 3 a.m. and man, we were all jumping for joy and so excited. It was a very cool moment.
And how much different was it bringing it over the side from other fish that you'd caught?
Oh man, it's crazy. It's there's the first one we caught might have been 100 kilos or something. We've since caught some bigger ones, and man, it's it's a lot different to swinging an anagai over the side. Let me tell you, it's a 3-man job and at times more. But we're a bit undergunned, but we get the job done. But yeah, it's completely different. One of my mates came to our first unload and he's like, mate, what the hell's going on? You've gone from catching 1 million nanagai to 4 fish. And it's the same amount of fish. It's it's bloody crazy.
I mean, swordfish is one of those mythical species, really, isn't it? It is quite a unique animal, and there's something really special about it. It must be exciting to think that your ethos of catching, in terms of really taking your craft skills to the next level and looking after the fish, it must be pretty exciting dealing with big animals like that with that same level of integrity.
Oh mate, it is. It's very exciting. Like the whole journey, as much as it's incredibly daunting, it's exciting, and I love a challenge. And now that we've sort of done enough trips to know that we're kind of on the right track with catching them, even though I'm sure we can improve that. Now it's becoming all about the quality of the fish and absolutely trying to nail that every time and being consistent with that. And yeah, it's much like the rest of that fishery, it's completely different. Looking after a swordfish has turned out to be completely different to looking after a barcod or a nanagai, and the expectations from the market are completely different as well. So, it's been a really great challenge.
Take us through that process, Anthony, in terms of looking after the quality of the fish on the boat and how that differs from looking after some of the big, you've caught big fish from those deep water fisheries before as well, but obviously not as big as swordfish. But just take us through that process of maximising the quality.
Yeah, okay. Well, so the reef fish, we're really trying to keep them away from ice and slurries as long as possible. So we catch them, icky jimmy, bleed them straight into a slurry. We had a bleed tank first, and then we'd put them in a slurry, get them really, really cold. And then, because we were just doing day trips, as soon as we got back into the wharf, they were in temperature-controlled cool rooms in tubs with liners. And we were really looking to keep rigor mortis. We really wanted clear, bright eyes. We weren't gutting anything or anything like that. There was no tampering of the fish in that way. And that's what our market came to expect of us, to have these really beautiful, bright, stiff reef fish, where the swordfish, it's almost like dealing with a side of beef rather than a fish because of the size of them and the fat content and their ability to sort of be you get a longer shelf life out of the product. So for a nanagai, we really recommend to everybody within 4 days you want to be using it, sort of thing, to get the best out of it. Whereas a swordfish, it's quite common to be weeks, which is a thing for me that's sort of blown our mind a little bit. And we actually, the first trip or two, ran into our fish being too fresh for the market. So people were cutting swordfish and they've never seen a swordfish that fresh before, and the meat hadn't set properly. So it's an interesting journey for us, and we're learning with the swordfish. Obviously, we head and gut them, and now we're leaving them in the slurry for a much longer period of time. So if we're doing day trips at the moment still, so we're only out for 24 hours. We leave them on the boat for an extra 12 hours just to make sure that their core temp's really, really down there. And then straight to our buyers. But, even things like the tuna, people expect to see a cloudy eye with a tuna. They want to see a cloudy eye because it's a proof that it's been at that temperature. It's been really cold, which is something completely different to what I'm used to. Because usually if I see a cloudy eye on a barcode, I'm getting stroppy with the deckhands. What's going on with this? Whereas, it's just a completely different thing. And yeah, so we're learning all those nuances around it, and it's quite exciting and quite fun. Of course, while we're, I keep telling our customers we've got our training wheels on, so make sure you give us all the feedback, not just the good stuff. Tell us everything so that we can learn as fast as possible. But yeah, so far so good, mate. People have been really happy with the product.
What have been some of the feedback that you've been getting? I mean, you've got arguably one of the most stellar customer books in the country for fresh seafood. What is some of the feedback that you've been getting?
Overwhelmingly really good. People are saying that they haven't seen swordfish like this before. So we are, by the time we get them to people, they're, circa 4 days, 3 or 4 days old. So we're just enough time for that meat to set, have that beautiful, clear, bright bloodline that people are looking for, and then scoot them straight over. We really try hard not to make so the skin on a swordfish is really delicate and is easily rubbed off. You can rub it off with your finger. So we're trying really hard to make sure that stays intact, and then we've got the colours on the skin so people can see the freshness because they don't have an eye or anything to look at. So people have said that it's eating really well. The fat content is really high. I would sort of attribute that to the really cold water we're fishing in. Yeah, man, people have been really happy. We've also had, a couple of bits of negative feedback, especially at the start. Just things that we didn't know. You don't know what you don't know. But we know infinitely more now, 7 trips in, than we did when we shot that first line away. So, and in another 7 trips, we'll know infinitely more again. So I'm very confident that we're going to nail the consistency and, get to the top of our game pretty shortly.
It's fantastic. It's very exciting, yeah. So, I mean, we often obsess over sustainability but talk far less about quality. Do you think that better handling and a higher value fish can actually be part of making a fishery business more sustainable?
I think it's imperative. To having a sustainable business model in fishing, particularly in today's climate. I think that both sustainability and quality are things that people like the consumer is looking for these days. Of course, there's a portion of the community that isn't, and they're just looking for price point, which is understandable, especially in today's economy. But it's becoming more and more important. And you can see it with the East Coast tuna at the moment. People are catching so much bluefin. If they caught half as much, they'd all be making the same money, if not more, with less effort. But it's a hard thing to get people away from that volume mentality because it's sort of in your DNA.
And what's been harder then, do you think? Is it learning how to catch the swordfish or convincing the market to properly value what you're catching?
I don't want to sound too arrogant. Catching the swordfish hasn't been the trickiest thing. I think the trickiest thing is ahead of us still. And that'll be the marketing of the swordfish and getting people to accept that actually they can be better than you've seen. It's a bit like barramundi. Like everyone's gotten so used to seeing farm barramundi that when they get a really nice piece of wild caught barramundi, or even something like what Chris Bolton's doing with the, day caught la-di-da barramundi, people don't, it's not the same thing. And it's a bit the same with what we're trying to do with the swordfish, So if you get a swordfish that's been treated like a princess and arrives on your plate 4 or 5 days later, it's a completely different animal to something that's been on a 3-week voyage and then through 3 wholesalers to get to you.
I mean, that's the really exciting thing about the journey that you're on in terms of really rebuilding the confidence in what should be a premium, ultra premium quality fish, which is fantastic. So look, having experienced a fishery closure firsthand, has it changed the way you think about fisheries management and the relationship between fishermen, scientists and regulators?
I already had a fairly dim view of the fisheries management in Western Australia, to be honest with you. I mean, there's a long rap sheet over the last decade of failures and things that should have been done differently. So it hasn't changed my view. It's more solidified it, which is back to one of my points of why we chose a Commonwealth fishery, was to sort of get away from our our state-run fisheries, because the way that they are doing it is not adequate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to that end, do you think Australian fisheries policy adequately considers the people and communities sitting behind the quota and the biomass numbers?
No, I don't think so. I think it depends. I can't speak for all fisheries, certainly. I'm not, up to date with what goes on over east, but you can see similar stories sort of throughout the country of political agendas taking over fisheries management. And, it just shouldn't be a thing that could happen. I just think that the people and the stakeholders in the industry, could come up with a far better solution to fisheries management than the politicians are.
Yeah, exactly. In hindsight, was the closure the worst thing that could have happened to you, or in the now 7 trips in, that's forced Revolution Fisheries to become what it is today, a good thing?
Well, I've had this discussion with my wife a few times. Arguably, it's a great thing for us personally. It's not a great thing for the fishery or the other fishermen, but arguably, it could turn out better for us in the long haul. It could turn out better for the swordfish fishery as well, and the way that people perceive swordfish domestically and abroad. So there's plenty of silver linings to the atrocity that was the fisheries closure. However, I would fully support that fishery coming back, and whether I re-entered it or not, I don't know. I might not. We still retain a South Coast line license, and I'm not sure, man. I don't know if I'll be doing much of it because I'm enjoying the challenge. I think this is a great fishery, and I'm excited by it.
It's fantastic. And what does success look like for you now? Is it catching more fish, catching better fish, getting a better price, and creating awareness for this amazing species, the swordfish, or is it something else entirely?
I think a few of those points sort of ring home. I think success looks like consistency. So I want consistency of quality. I think that's even more important than having the best fish ever. If you don't have the best fish ever next week, then it sort of is for nothing. I think that I would rather have a really, really, really good fish every day. Consistency, obviously learning. We don't have any idea what we're doing. I'm not going to be, not in terms of the handling, but in terms of the fishing. The handling is something that's sort of innate, and we're nearly there, really, to be honest with you. The quality is really high. But, the fishing, learning that fishery, learning about the seasons and where the fish are moving, and I've got no idea. So that is a challenge that's exciting. Success will be understanding that a little bit more. And also just for awareness, I love educating the public and the people about our local fish and our local waters and stuff. And I think the swordfish is something that's really underrated. And I think it's something that you see it on menus, but people don't really know about it or talk about what it is or where it comes from, or what is a good piece of swordfish. So I think that, I'm really excited to explore that and teach people as I learn about it.
So from a culinary perspective, how's your experience been with swordfish over the last few months? Been able to sort of cook, eat, enjoy a bit? From
a culinary experience, I hadn't even tried it until like 4 trips in because I'd been so busy and I hadn't cut any up yet. And I cut a couple up for a restaurant, and another fisherman actually dropped by and he wanted to try some, so I gave him a piece. And he went over to his yard about, a kilometre away, and then he rang me up half an hour later and he's like, "Bro, this swordfish is amazing." And he brought it around to me in an old cheese container, a piece of swordfish, and I had a taste and I was like, wow, it is really good. And it's different to anything I'd tried. It's really cool. It's a really cool piece of fish. So I'm yet to actually have it out and about with someone who knows what they're doing. No offense, Pete. I'm sure that cooking it up in your shed was mint, but I'd love to try and see what someone like Neil Perry or Josh Noland or even any of our local amazing chefs are doing with it, because it's a really cool piece of protein.
Look, it's a pretty exciting future that you've got in front of you with this species. I'm personally really excited for you because I just think I'm with you. I think it's just one of those great underdeveloped fish and fisheries down there in the southwest. And I guess now that you've been forced to start again and knowing everything you know now, would you still choose to be a fisherman?
Oh, mate, 8 days a week. Yeah, I love it. It's not without its challenges, that's for sure. I mean, you've got to have a certain amount of, I don't know whether it's arrogance or stupidity or what it is, but you've got to be able to back yourself. You've got to be able to work hard and then work even harder because it's ridiculously hard. Everything about it is hard, as we know, and fishermen are a unique breed. You get sort of forged into this personality over years of doing it. There's lots of adversity, but man, the good times are so good. You wake up at 3 a.m., you see all the sunsets, you see all the sunrises. There's something really wholesome about being a fisherman that you sort of can't replicate anywhere else. I mean, perhaps agriculture, I'm not sure, but yeah, there's something about it, mate, about working with nature and sort of providing nature's bounty to people and then, hearing the amazing feedback that it runs through it on it. So yeah, there's no way I wouldn't be a fisherman.
Anthony Heslewood, look, it's been fantastic catching up and hearing that you've still got a smile on your face, you've still got that spring in your step, and you've still got that passion for fishing, which is amazing. We'll be watching closely to see this story unfold. I'm super excited, and congratulations. Thanks for joining us today on Fishtales Seafood Podcast.
Yeah, thanks, mate. It's been a pleasure. I look forward to sort of showing off a bit more of what we can do down here.
This is Fishtales, a seafood podcast. A Deep in the Weeds production. I'm John Susman. Follow us on Instagram at Fishtales Seafood Podcast or email us at fishtalespodcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay tuned for more tales from beneath the surface of the seafood world every Friday on your podcast app.